Hey guys, Jack here. Welcome to the vlog. Today I'm going to show you three common ways that you can write out drum kit music. Okay, there's not one standard way of writing it. There are common ways and less common ways, and I'm going to go through three of the most common ways today. All right, so this is, of course, for any drum kit music, any part of the drum kit, toms, cymbals, etc. The example that I'm going to use, which is the same in each of the three styles, is just a basic rock beat. You can see there on screen, it's just boom, bopped, boom, boom, bopped. So basic rock or pop beat. And if we have a look at exercise number 1, the thing that is different about this compared to the other two is that it's the only example where all the notes are written in what we would call one voice. And that is that all the stems coming off the note heads are all pointing in the same direction. You can see they're all pointing up. That would certainly be the more common way of doing it, with the stems pointing up. To me, it looks really strange if you ever see things and all the stems are pointing down. Just looks really bizarre. So that is the first way. You can see the hi-hats, the bass drum and the snare, everything's pointing up. All right, so that is certainly a valid way of writing it. You'll see that in some charts and some books written in one voice. The second way and the third way are both written in what we would call two voices. And what that means is that some of the notes are pointing up, that's the first voice, and some of the notes, the stems, are pointing down. That's the second voice, so you have two voices. If you look at exercise number 2 or example number 2, basically what's happening there is all of the sticked notes, anything that you're hitting with sticks, all the stems coming off the note heads are pointing up, and anything that's played with the pedals, in this instance only bass drum, all the stems are pointing down. Again, certainly a valid way of doing it. The thing you've got to remember if you're going to do it in this fashion is that because you have a second voice for the pedals, you've got to make sure that every beat is accounted for rhythmically and that everything adds up to 4 beats. So you can't just leave a blank space there on beat 2 or beat 4. Granted, this is a really sparse pattern, quarter note on beat 1 and then 2/8 notes on beat 3. But you've got to put quarter note rests on beats 2 and 4, otherwise that voice doesn't add up to 4/4 time. Okay? On the top voice, every 8th note's being played on the hi-hat, so everything's accounted for. But the bottom one, you've got to put in the rests. Now, you might say that there are pros and cons to this way. I would say that for someone, especially if you're playing something quite complex, and you've got to remember, like with the feet stuff, the pedal work, it could be double kick stuff, it could be hi-hat chicks, could be hi-hat splashes, heel toe, could be anything. So maybe if things are getting really busy with the feet, you might want to separate that, like just from a visual point of view, it might make more sense to you to read it in that way. It kind of looks like, more ink on the page than needed if it's just written with a whole lot of rests, so you may or you may not want to use that second version. The third version is where everything that is a drum is pointing down and everything that is a cymbal is pointing up. And so in this instance, we've got both the snare and the bass with stems pointing down and only the hi-hats pointing up. Now, you could roll that out and put, if you're doing something that involved tom-toms and whatnot, then I would assume using this version or variation that they would go with stems pointing down as well, and anything crash, ride, bell, china, what have you, stems would be pointing up. Okay, so this is 3 common ways of doing it. It's certainly not to say that one is right or wrong, and it's certainly not saying this is the only way of doing it either. If you read a lot of different books and you do a lot of chart reading and whatnot on gigs and so on, you'll realize that there's heaps of different ways. I can think of a well-known book actually where the author has gone as far as notating with the note heads themselves whether it's a right or a left stick on hi-hat. So a common way of writing hi-hat is to write it with X's on top of the top line, where ride cymbal would be X's on the top line, the actual top line. But this author has actually put them, I believe, in the top space. All the X's, if they're written with X's, that means right stick, and all the X's with circles around them are left stick. So the beauty about that, although if you've not read it before like that, it looks a little bit strange, it takes a little bit to get used to. The beauty about that is that you don't need a whole lot of R's and L's all over, written all over the music, because the note heads themselves are telling you whether or not to play a right hand or a left hand. All right, so everyone kind of has their own unique way of doing it, and usually if it's coming from a book, you can look up what's called the key or the legend at the start of the at the start of the book, and that'll tell you where all the drums and all the cymbals fit for that book. All right, so there you go. That's been 3 different ways of writing drum kit music, and I hope you learned something and enjoyed the lesson, and we'll see you next time. Take care.